last session we put together party folders and business information packs, and today we're going to talk more about how to use them and other things as we go throughout the party process. So we're going to start today talking a little bit first about storytelling and how it can help us catch the attention of people who might be interested in the business at the party. And then we're going to actually go through the party process step by step and look at ways of being able to drop in little hooks as we go, in order to catch people's interest. We're going to be using all of the things that we've learned so far, and we're going to see how we put all of that together at the party. Now, although this session is called Recruiting at the Party, please just note that we're not meaning we're going to actually try to sign anybody up at a party. When we're at a party, we're there to do the best job we can for our host on the night, and anything else that we manage to get from there or do from there is considered just setting ourselves up for appointments and conversations that we'll have with people a little bit later. Okay, storytelling. So now storytelling is an extremely important part of our business. We must get good at it, and it's something that I wasn't good at all to begin with. I'm not a very fluffy person. I'm more of a facts and figures and bullet pointy person, and that doesn't work well with storytelling. So I needed to learn to be able to tell stories. And when you can get good at telling stories, it doesn't only help your recruiting, it helps your selling, it helps in how you relate to people, and everything else to do with our business, including if you're a leader giving training. Everything becomes easier when you're good at telling stories. The people don't generally remember much in the way of facts and figures, but they definitely remember stories and how they relate to them personally. So if we just have a quick think about what stories actually do for us. They entertain us. You know, they're always fun to listen to, and it's always a great idea when we're doing parties to make sure that they're entertaining and fun, and stories are a really good way to do that. You don't necessarily, now when we talk about having fun at parties, it's not about you needing to be the clown or standing on the table doing party tricks or any of that. You just need to be good company and interesting to listen to, and that's fun. People like that. So stories are entertaining. They engage us emotionally, and they actually help us bypass our logical brain. You know, when we buy something, often we buy based on emotion, and it's sort of like we've seen something, we love it, we want it, but later on when we explain why we bought it, we actually explain it differently. We explain it based on logic. So for example, we might see a handbag and absolutely love it, and we just have to have it. But later on when we're showing our husband, we might say, look, it's so practical, it's just the right size, and it's got a mobile phone holder, and blah, blah, blah. So we bought on emotion, but we explained it using logic. So when we're recruiting, we use things like the lifestyle page that we talked about last time in our party folders to get their attention and invoke their emotion as they look at it and they feel something's missing in their life, and maybe this business could give it to them. But later on, they need to go and explain their decision and why they're interested to other people. So we need to also give them facts and figures so they can explain their decision with logic, especially when they go home. Now, stories also keep our interest. So it stops people fidgeting, chatting to each other, doing other things, checking their phone messages, and it actually does make them sit up and listen. So I'm sure that you can think of countless times for yourself when you found a story interesting, but the minute the whole facts and figures thing goes on, you start to glaze over and it doesn't really make as much impact on you. Now, stories are also easy to remember, and this is very important for a really good reason, and it's because we're training people. But the reason that they're easy to remember is that obviously you can identify with them, but just think about if you were to read a history book or sit in a history class, as some of us might have had to do in our past, and the teacher was busy telling us that King George VI had a stutter. Now, you might find that quite difficult to remember, and you might find it completely uninteresting. I know that I wouldn't remember if it was King George, King Edward, King whatever number. I wouldn't remember anything. But if you go and watch a movie like The King's Speech, for example, quite a different story. I'm sure that if you were to go and watch that movie, you would come out of there knowing so much more about history than you could ever have learned if you just read the hard, cold facts and figures. So this is how children learn, and this is why we read them stories so that they can learn. As we grow up, we're no different to them. So if we want people to go and tell other people about what we're showing them at our parties, about our business opportunity, about whatever, we need to make sure that they remember things that are important, and we need to make sure they remember accurately. Now, people will remember stories more accurately than they'll remember facts and figures. So in a way, by telling stories, we really are training them to talk to other people about our business and our products. So when we listen to stories, we're listening to things that we can identify with. You know, if we listen to somebody telling a story about a mother with a child, for example, and we might be a mother ourselves, as we're listening to it, we might be listening to what they're saying, but we are relating it to our own experience. So if you think about this, when you're telling stories, it means although you are talking about yourself at your party, actually what you're trying to do is talk about them, the people who are listening, because they are hearing the parts that match with their own life and their own stories. So when you're talking about yourself at parties, remember to keep it short. Remember that although your life history is incredibly interesting to you, we're telling the story for a reason. And the reason is not simply to talk about ourselves, but to engage our listeners and to get some important information across to them. So your life history is interesting to you, but probably not quite as interesting to everybody else. So we need to be targeted in actually what we decide to share. Now, often party planners are quite reluctant to talk about themselves, and it's just simply something we've got to get over. And I struggled with this so much. I just thought, who wants to hear about me? Nobody's interested in me. They've come to see the products. Why would I tell them anything about myself? But the interesting thing was the day that I got over this was a day when I was attending a seminar, and there were several guest speakers there. Now, all of them were interesting and all of them had powerful messages, but the funny thing was that out of all of the speakers, I think there were 7 of them, only one of them told us anything about themselves personally. Now, for all of the other people, I found that I was actually sitting wondering about them. I was wondering, I wonder if they've got a family. I wonder what their hobbies are. I wonder where they come from. And I was so busy wondering about them, I actually found it a bit distracting. So the one person who actually told us about herself and put some personal information into her presentation was the one person that I felt totally comfortable with, and it was the presentation I got the most from. So from that day on, I talked a little bit about myself at parties, but you do have to be selective about what you talk about, and I'm going to help you find out how you can select the information you want to give later on. Now, just remember that people are nosy and they want to know something about you, and we're no different. If you think about it, we're all nosy. We want to know about the person we're listening to as well. So make sure you tell them something, but not too much.